Well, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the 2023 Soil Farm of the Year final. So, for those of you who may not know, the Soil Farmer of the Year is a competition designed to find and promote the best of our UK farmers and growers who are managing their businesses to safeguard their soils and really promote that on-farm resilience. So the competition is designed to bring our farmers together to share their knowledge, their experience of all the innovations that are going on out on farm. So with that, I would like to thank all of our applicants who have applied this year. We've had a fantastic group of entries as ever. It seems year on year the applications getting more diverse and we're really encapsulating that full range of UK farming. So thank you very much to anyone who took the time to enter our fabulous shortlist and those farmers who were awarded highly commended, and equally our finalists. With that, I'd like to introduce myself. So I am Emma. I work for the Farm Carbon Toolkit, and it's been my absolute pleasure to facilitate this competition this year. But I wasn't alone, and the people on stage were very, very helpful in getting the competition together, along with some other very kind members of our audience from Farm Carbon Toolkit and beyond. So with me, I have Deborah Crossan, who is the Natural Resources Manager for Innovation for Agriculture. And Innovation for Agriculture are our partner organisation in this competition. They're brilliant and they're very, very helpful, so thank you, Deb. I also have Paul Totterdell from Cotswold Seas as their General Manager. Paul very kindly sponsors this competition, so without Paul, we wouldn't have any prizes, so thank you, Paul. And last but not least, we have Ed Brown, who's Head of Agroecology for Hutchinson's, and again, a very, very key part of our judging team. So again, big thanks to Ed and Hutchinson's for sponsoring the competition. So without that, I'm going to pass over to our sponsors now to tell you why they love the Soil Farm of the Year competition so much. So Ed, if I could start with you.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I think, well, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, Emma, but I think this is the third year we've been involved, maybe four, but certainly three. And yeah, I mean, the appetite from us, and certainly from me, is for that definitely not to stop. I think we're completely in support of this competition because I think it's widely accepted and spoken about that the best way for farmers to learn and to make a transition is to learn from other farmers. And this competition is a really great platform to highlight those who are doing a fantastic job, host the farm walks, shout about them from the rooftops, and share what they're up to and share their experiences. So that is something that we're delighted to be a part of. And yeah, let's hear from them because no one wants to listen to me today. Over to you, Paul.
Hi, thanks, Emma. And yeah, it's fantastic to be here once again. I mean, we've equally been supporting this competition for quite a while, and I think it's so important for a few different reasons, but primarily it draws attention to all the hard work, the blood, sweat and tears that the shortlisted farmers and all the competition entrants that they undertake in order to achieve what they do. It really is a fantastic effort, so it's important to draw attention to that, but also on a wider goal of making sure that the whole world knows about how important the soil is. The competitions like this make sure that they stay high on the agenda and they keep the focus on what we all know to be absolutely vital, and that's soil fertility and regenerating our soil and regen ag as we go forward. Also want to say thank you to the Farm Carbon Toolkit guys, because it's such an effort to put these sorts of competitions on, running around all over the country, administration, organisation. It's a big undertaking, so congratulations for you guys for doing such a fantastic job.
Yeah, I'll second that. Well done.
It's and of course, it's made even harder when the competition is so close as it has been this year. So judging is not an easy task. So well done, guys, for doing the judging as well. So moving on.
Yeah, thank you very much, both. So what we thought would be interesting to do is actually give an overview of what our Soil Farm of the Year finalists have actually had to go through to get to this point at Groundswell. So we thought Deb, as one of the key judges throughout the years, has seen so many soil farmers and farms around the country, would be a really good person to give an overview of the application process and all of the hoops that we've had these farmers jump through.
Thank you, Emma. Well, I was so lucky to get this role from David Gardner that started this competition along with Farm Carbon Toolkit for Innovation for Agriculture. So thank you, David, because it's been absolutely fantastic being involved in judging this competition. The entries open on World Soils Day on the 5th of December. So anyone that's thinking they might give it a go, that's a brilliant way of remembering it. World Soils Day, get your entries in, because we'd be super delighted to read them. The first stage is that online entry, and you've got some time to put that in as the competition closes in 5th of March. Thank you, Emma. And so you've got time to give it a bit of thought and get us a brilliant entry in. Then we have a wide range of judges right across the different organisations, partners and sponsors that get involved in looking at all of those applications which are anonymised. Once that process has happened and we draw up a shortlist, we invite those people to come and have an interview with us or online. So a bit daunting, but in front of a really friendly panel where we talk about your farm. That gives us a final shortlist and our visits, which is the most exciting part of the competition, as we literally go on a road trip around the whole country and further afield. So that finalises us at this event at Groundswell. We're able to present the Soil Farmer of the Year, and it's very exciting.
Fabulous. So without further ado, I feel like we should get round to the results. So I'm going to hand over to Paul to announce winners, and Ed's going to very kindly present the trophies. So if I could ask our winners, when your name's called, to come up, receive your trophies, and then we'll have a photo at the end.
Great stuff. So firstly, congratulations to everybody that's been involved. Unfortunately, there has to be a short list and there has to be winners. But so without further ado, the third place for the Soil Farmer of the Year award goes to Bronner O'Kane from Cookstown. Congratulations, well done, fantastic work. And second prize goes to Richard Anthony from Bridgend. And last but not least, first prize goes to Stuart Johnson from Hexham.
Has everyone got a microphone? Yeah? So, after all that excitement, I think we'll start off with a nice, easy question of, could you give us an overview of your farm? And Stuart, I'm going to come to you first, please.
Hello. Yep. Hi. We are tenant farmers, 540 acres on land in Northumberland, fairly lowland compared to a lot of the friends of the ones I've got here. So, yeah, we sort of shifted to regenerative sort of experiments 10 years ago. Did very badly for the first 5 or 6 years as we sort of made mistakes and kept trying, but and then we sort of 4 or 5 or 6 years ago started to become intentional about it, which is a Gabe Brown expression. If you want to do it properly or get out. So we started to really look into it, all the soil health, and understand it all, and we have made some vast improvements since then, hopefully. So mainly livestock farmers. We have our own arable, but we just use that for home stuff. Used to be sort of 200 acres of arable, but that's down to about 80 now, just because we don't feed very much anymore. And suckler cows mainly is sort of my passion. We have a lot of sheep as well, but I try and offload those to other people. So yeah, that's about it for us, I think.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Richard, can I come to you?
Well, we're farming in South Wales, and we started farming in 97, and we built the business up from then. Started with 110 acres, farming just over 3,000, with a mixture of FBTs and contract farming. But we, in autumn 2001, we took a lot of ground on, and it had been in cereals for 30, 40 years, and I suppose we learned the hard way then, really, to try and change things and try and get some organic matter back in on some of the real poor soils, and we now got 800 ewes of our own. We use, but we fetch another 3,000-4,000 sheep in through the winter to graze a lot of rye Westwalls that we grow as a cover crop. We also graze most of the wheats now, and totally changed the way we farm now, mostly direct min-till or direct drilling. But it's changed. We're trying to use a lot of cover crops and companion cropping. So one of the big aims with us is keep a crop in the ground all the time and try and build these organic levels.
Fabulous, thank you very much. Brona, can you tell us what you've been up to, please?
I have a farm just outside Cookstown, Tyrone, right in the middle of Northern Ireland. And I just took over from my dad just a few years ago. And I didn't grow up on the farm, so it was all completely new to me. It's a beef suckler. Well, it was stores, sucklers and finishers, and I've changed it to pretty much just sucklers. And then I brought in sheep. There's no arable in Mid-Ulster, really, so it's all permanent grassland.
Fabulous. Brilliant. So the next question is, what have you found the most challenging of the journey so far? What sort of elements of potentially changing your management or your system have you found have sort of had the biggest barriers so far within your journey? Stuart, I'll come to you again first.
I think we were incredibly intensive farmers for a long time. Probably sort of 2012 is when we sort of started looking at things to change it, and that was purely for a financial reason that we started changing it. We wanted to cut the costs of crop establishment and that sort of stuff. So our challenges were that we came from probably such a bad place, and we had such bad tendencies in the way we farmed. The mindset shift's probably been the biggest thing. We have a team of 4 family members in the family, on the business, sorry, and they were not coming willingly to begin with. So it's taken a bit of gentle persuasion over the last 10 years to get them to where we are now, but they're all fully on board now. But those first few years were incredibly difficult, getting them to let us sort of try things and do things. So the biggest challenge we've sort of had has been this sort of the team coming along at the same pace as I wanted to go. I think I'm a bit of a jump straight in and see what happens afterwards sort of a person, and they were not for that. So it's taken a bit of coercing, but they are on board now and everything, going swimmingly. But it did take a bit in those first few years to get going. So.
And was there an incident during the judging process? Stuart told us a wonderful story about how you managed to bring the rest of the family on board with reducing your nitrogen usage. Do you want to share that anecdote of how that happened?
Well, I do all the nitrogen applications, so I just stopped putting it on. So they all thought things were going wonderful, thinking we were putting the same amount on, but as the fertilizer pile just slowly grew in the shed rather than getting put on. So that was sort of the bit when I went to the end of the season and said, well, actually, we haven't put very much on, and it's still as good, if not better, than usual. So that was the...
Where there's a will, there's a way, isn't there? Richard, what have you found one of the biggest challenges during your transition? You're obviously managing a large area with lots of different soil types. How have you found moving all of that to the same sort of system?
One of the big challenges we found is that we got quite varied soils, but it's when the silt soils have been very challenging. We got some ground that's over 70% silt, and trying to manage them on years when we have high rainfall. That's a real challenge.
Fabulous. And Brona, what have you found? Obviously, you said you've been back on the farm for 2 years. There must be many, many challenges. Are there any key ones which are sticking out?
Yeah, everything. I had no experience. Wasn't involved in the farm growing up at all. So it was not just learning how to look after livestock, drive machinery and work the land and silage, but it was at the same time I was learning about soils, and I knew it was our biggest. Well, that was what Dad said. This is our biggest hurdle. We have bad soils, so you're never going to be successful here, and that was my big challenge. Was I thought I had no experience, but then actually when I started learning, I realized it was at the same time as my biggest advantage, because I questioned then everything, and that was kind of, I guess it's a twofold.
Fabulous. So from the biggest challenge, what have we found the most rewarding outcome of how you now manage your soils? Brona, I'm going to come straight back to you so you don't have any time to think about it.
So most rewarding outcome from managing soils, worm counts in 2 years, going from 2 to getting 15 to 20. It's just unproven to Dad that a 50-50 clay silt with zero sand is really hard to manage. Yes, I'll agree with that. But you can change it. You can manage it better. And getting those kind of worm counts was just, that was pretty special.
And would you say one of your other sort of successes when you're managing your soils is you're doing a lot with worms not in the soils as well, aren't you? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
I got a bit obsessed with worms. I started being known as the worm girl. But it was Nicole Masters' book, and just went on a mission to learn about what was bad soils and what was good soils then. And then when I read Nicole Masters' work, actually, I only came across Nicole Masters because I dug in the manure pit to use to make a flower bed, and then seen all these worms, like masses of them, and I was like, well, they're not in the soil, why are they all in here? And then learned it's different worms, and then when I went on a worm research, I came across Nicole, read her book, and then everything was just like, this is just awesome, this is doable. And then I started a worm farm, and then that just got really, really obsessive. But I'd learned so much then that I could make something at a really low cost that was going to amend my soil. And that was a big game changer. And it was that vermicast extract that I was making that I believe helped that worm count in my soil. And this was not even boosting it with anything else that I was buying in at that point. It was just pure vermicast, just made with poo. And I was like so proud of it. It's like, this is pennies. Why aren't we all doing it?
Fabulous. Richard, coming to you, what would you say has been the most rewarding outcome of your management change, as if?
Seeing the way the soils have changed and the soil biology, again, worm counts just going through the roof like this. The beetles, it's how that soil biology working is what is what has changed the farm. It's just trying to get that soil working properly, and what we find is that the more you get the soil working, the better the soil's working, the less we need to do. It's changed the way we farm.
Yeah, you've done a lot with cover cropping, haven't you, and companion cropping. Did you want to go into detail on that a little bit?
Yes, we like if we got a gap of 6 or 8 weeks now between crops, we'll plant a cover crop, and we're finding that the soil resilience has changed. Like it's with our oilseed rape, we totally from the way we were growing oilseed rape 10 years ago, we planted 3 cover crops with the oilseed rape, and we've cut out applications of nitrogen then in the spring, so it's most of those sort of things are doing more than one thing. They're combating with flea beetle, they're fixing nitrogen, and then the other one, then we're going a lot lower seed rates with our oilseed rape. Then one of the big problems you have is pigeons. Well, the companion crops then are helping with that as well. So, you know, they're doing multiple things. It really it's quite exciting to see how those crops have improved over the last few years with us.
And Stuart, what have you found most rewarding about your soils journey? Yeah, I've got a follow-up for you on that one as well.
I think that we can go into the details of that, sort of the soils and everything. I could reiterate what they've said, but I think the overriding comfort I've taken out of it is the resilience we've built into the business, in terms of we had gone down by the riverbed on sand and gravel, and we had standing crops of barley that was droughting off sort of 2018. Last year we have the same crops in similar fields, and we don't get any of that. We don't need to worry about the fertilizer price going up. We don't need to worry about the feed prices going up too much. It's a bit of a calming resilience that sort of feeds into the business, which is quite nice. So it's not necessarily one thing, it's a multitude of things that allows that sort of enjoyment to creep back into it. So that's a big thing. So.
Yeah. And follow-up question for you on how has, obviously you're a mixed farm, how has integrating livestock benefited the arable side? I know you've reduced your acreage on the arable side. Could you give us a run through of how blending those two elements of farming together has built the resilience in your business?
So we don't tend to sell a lot of arable. We just grow what we needed, and like I say, it was 200 acres-ish sort of a few years ago. We now can keep the cows out till middle of January sort of thing on permanent pastures, just mob grazing them around, bring them in the shed to calve at sort of the start of February, which isn't quite in line with nature as it were, but we're still better than most hopefully on that. And then we can turn them back out in March. So our window of housing cattle and livestock and stuff is so small now. We used to utilize an enormous amount of cover crops, great big, you know, pat me on the back, I've made the biggest cover crop here, and the cows would walk in and disappear in. And we kind of went full circle with that in terms of why do we have to grow these cover crops? It's because we've damaged something that necessitates us using that. So we've looked at it from a sort of different perspective as to, if we don't need to damage it, then we don't need to put these cover crops in to repair it. So we've reduced the arable down to sort of the minimal acres now. The cattle will move around, and the sheep, none of them get any sort of supplementary feed through the winter. We have a changed rotation now, 5 years of a legume and herb rich sward, followed by 2 years of cereal. I like to think that we'd sort of spend 5 years building up a little bank account in the soil, and then we spend 2 years cashing that out a little bit, no more than we've put in, but a little bit, just to sort of get those free arable crops out of it, and then we just start again and go again. So the livestock are crucial to the business in terms of building that fertility in the soil that allows us to grow cereal crops for very little. Whether we'll continue to keep growing crops is another thing, because we're just not using the amounts we used to use. So we kind of got to a point last year whether I did need to increase the livestock or the arable side of things. So we've got a few decisions to make going forward, but it's nice to have positive decisions rather than chasing ourselves at the end of the year thinking how we're going to fix this. So, all right?
Yeah, no, amazing, thank you. Richard, similarly, you have obviously got a very diverse arable business incorporating forage crops and various other enterprises within it. Could you run us through how bringing sheep into that arable side has built that sort of resilience and potentially another enterprise within your arable system?
Yes, we're using a lot of sheep in the winter on grazing. Rather than growing a cover crop through the winter, we grow rye Westwalls with vetches as well. So we got a legume in there, and we'll graze that until we'll plant that after wheat in early September. Graze that until mid-December. But it's managing that canopy. We're always trying to not graze it too hard, so that we've always got good rooting in the Rye Westwells. We'll cut that in mid-April, and then we'll turn that ground back round. We'll put that back into maize. So we the Rye Westwells and the maize we sell to. We clamp it, and then that goes out to dairy farms all year round. So we're using that now as break crops. So in a way, all the ground we can grow maize on, we'll grow 9 crops in 6 years. So we're always trying to keep this soil working well, and we've been able to build our soil organic matters. We've recently done our carbon audit again now, and on the same fields that we were where we've done soil organic matters 5 years ago, taking them from the same areas. We've been increasing our organic levels by 0.2% per year, which I think is where we want to be, really. It's trying to get more resilience. We're having more long wet spells and more long dry spells, so it's trying to get that resilience built into the business.
Brilliant. I'm going to come to Brona now. I can't quite see. Hi, Brona. I was going to ask, what or who did you find the most helpful during your sort of journey so far? Was there a particular person you spoke to, or something you read which sort of really got the wheels turning on how you wanted to manage your land?
Well, I suppose I should give my dad some credit, because most people in succession don't get the free reins opportunity that I got. It was only maybe the first couple of years that he was quite cautious. But so Dad was great at just kind of being like, okay, right, go on, it's yours, and you've got to learn by your mistakes. But I would always still come back to Nicole Masters' work. And her book is just such a good way to speak to farmers in a real life context of how you can take the science and make it applicable in every day, and stuff that you can do yourself and get your head around. But the Nature Friendly Farming Network were the only people for me in Northern Ireland that I found of a similar ilk, and that was a massive help to be able to find someone else that was growing multi-species, although it was in a completely different climate, and everybody says they'll never grow in Mid-Ulster, but you can't listen to your man over in the east because they have lovely dry weather and soils. But everybody in that group was just so helpful, and that was brilliant to be able to find those like-minded farmers, because regenerative is something we are all going to have to embrace, I think, for the future of farming. And I heard someone say today a really good phrase, that if you want to go fast, go it alone, but if you want to go further, go together. And that's what finding those other farmers was for me. I needed their years of experience, sometimes answer the questions for the wacky stuff I wanted to do.
You mentioned earlier you were working in other industries before sort of coming back or backing into farming. Do you think that's helped provide a different sort of perspective on how you manage your land and sort of the processes you'd like to take?
I don't know. I don't know, because I was an aircraft mechanic in the Air Force for 12 years, and then I ran a business as a textiles designer for a few years, and then ended up on the farm. I think, in one sense, maybe having jumped around, and I did helped my brother set up a really large joinery manufacturing company for 18 months in between that too. But I think, if anything, I'd maybe had the confidence of it's easy to switch and learn and jump into something new. But getting out of bed early, that I should have taken that from the military. That didn't carry through.
Right, we'll have one last question from me, and then we'll go out to the audience. I'm just thinking there's so many different avenues to go down. So a nice tricky one, I think, before we go to the audience. I'll be mean. So Stuart, you can go first on this one. Was there ever a point during your journey where you questioned whether you were doing the right thing or not? What made you persevere?
2017, when we dabbled with it for 5 years and not made any headway. I remember seeing Gabe Brown with a video saying, if you're going to do it, be intentional and do it properly. And that was the point at which we sort of discussed as a family, are we going to keep going with it, or do we draw back and just move back to the conventional side of things? Luckily, we chose to keep going with it, and it sort of paid dividends in the end. But I think at that point where you need to, like I say, we've dabbled with it. We've done different things. We've done things badly and some things really good. But we were sort of three steps forward, 2 steps back every year. And I think that sort of purposeful choice that we were going to take it seriously. I was going to enhance my learning, went on a lot of courses in 2018. That was the bit that we sort of said, well, we're going to do this properly and we're going to make sure we understand it all. Because we were getting successes before that, and it all kind of kept boiling back down to this. The way we were doing it was the organic matter field, so the high organic matter could manage the system that we were performing on it, but the ones that didn't have that resilience. So we needed to understand why, and then follow the principles. It'll all fall into place. I'm a bit of a nerd, so I like to understand the science behind it now. So I've started to do all that, which is complex, but also quite rewarding when you do. So yeah, that was the real point where we saw, let's do this properly.
Thank you. Richard, coming to you, did you ever have a point during your journey where you sort of started questioning things, but then what made you persevere and carry on to where you are today?
I don't think that there's been any one point. Throughout the year you have those times when you think, Craigie Moses, are we doing the right thing? But I've always believed that we're going down the right route, and I've always believed in managing the soils, and the key to it is managing our soils right. And I think that's where I've always wanted to try and. I've always looked at the soil. Then I've always carried a spade in the truck with me, and a lot of people look at me daft when I'm forever digging holes in fields, and when people see you smelling soil, they look at you a bit daft sometimes. But I've always been interested in soil biology, and that is key to what we do. That's key to life, and that's the important bit.
Brilliant. Brona, you had a point where you questioned what you're doing?
I think whenever I really started learning about soils and understanding that chemical, physical and biology part, I didn't, because I had done so much reading and research, and I think maybe that engineering head of I always have to know how and why of everything, and if somebody was trying to sell me a product, I'd need to know, how did you make that, and why is this going to work? And so I think I didn't doubt. Once I had felt like I've researched this, I've maybe done a wee trial over there or something, and I didn't doubt it. And I think when you are making changes that are quite drastic to what has been the history of that farm, and you have suddenly got the responsibility that you can't mess it up, and your neighbours are watching, I just tried to make sure that I had myself well prepped and just believed in it. It's when you read about a lot of other farmers and watching you on webinars and hearing stories from other people, you kind of, well, it's working for them. This is not hocus pocus. So you have to trust and believe and keep pushing forward with it.
Yeah. Wise words indeed. So with that, I'd like to now open up the floor to questions. So who has got a question for our soil farmers? Got a roving mic who will be round.
Hiya. It sounds like you guys are doing some amazing innovations on each of your farms, and that you're adapting them specifically to work for your system. But my question is, what's next on the agenda? What's starting to get you ticking? And what are you excited to start experimenting with?
I'll jump in because I've gone through an enormous amount of tinkering, experimenting, and playing. And my excitement is I'm just going to simplify it and make sure there's too many people out there selling you potions and this and that. This will make stuff grow. This will make you get golden cows that'll whatever. And I think there's too much of that in it where the people overcomplicate it or make it seem like it's too difficult to do. So my thing now is that we're going to simplify the system, and if you follow the principles, the rest will just fall into place behind you. So, for example, the pH, we used to have a huge problem with pH dropping. We stopped putting synthetics on, the pH stays still now. So the more we try and interfere with it, the more we create problems that need to be fixed. So I think if we can take a step back and look at it from sort of a different angle and think, well, actually, do we need to do that? Do we need to? Yes, I do aerobic compost teas. I could do various things, but if we just follow the principles and stop creating the need for those, then life's a lot easier. Which is where I'm trying to get to be the laziest farmer in Northumberland's my goal. So we'll see if I get there.
I just think that we're only on the tip of the iceberg, really, where we're going with our soils and understanding them. The more we learn about how the soils work, the more we realise how little we know. And I just think that we've got some really exciting times ahead with what we're learning all the time and the way we're changing, the way we're farming. We've got some really exciting times in farming.
I want to tinker a bit more about what I can push to grow in the ground, seeing multi-species grow in pH of 5.8 in heavy clay, wet, waterlogged soils, and everybody said they wouldn't grow. It's made me now want to push and test a few other crops to deal with. Rushes would be a big problem in our area, like tillage radish, and just I want to try some innovative things to grow in the ground to try and help repair and push the soil forward faster, and seeing just what can I train the cows to eat. They're now on nettles. So that's quite interesting to see when you can change your bricks of your plants and what they really will start to eat then, whenever it obviously tastes a little different, like that kind of thing.
Got to save some steps.
Congratulations to you all, but what would you ever consider going the next step and going organic or even biodynamic, and what, if anything, would hold you back from doing that?
I'm not adverse to organic. I think it has a place, as it were, but I don't have a goal to get there, because for me, you can be an organic farmer and be terribly damaging to the soil at the same time. So to put a label on it doesn't really entice me at all, if it were. I know I don't use much fertilizer. I know I don't use much sprays. I suppose I don't need to put anything on it to know that. But I also, at the same time, if something needs fixed because it's damaging the crop, I have no aversion to going in to fix it. Kind of what I try and do is, if I have to use something, if I need to go and sward lift or aerate the soil, what I will do is try and change the management to make sure it's the last time I have to do that. So what we're constantly looking to try and do is to make sure that if we have to use these fixes and stuff, it's for the last time. So I don't want to take that option away, because sometimes I will get it wrong and I will have to repair it. But I don't see any huge benefit to going fully organic, because there is times when you will need to repair something. But like I say, the goal is that will be the last time we have to do that. So that's my take on it.
I can't see us going organic. But if you look at the way I think we've all got the same aims in life. You know, we've all started, if you like, from over there, and we're aiming to get over there. And organic, I just think organic will go round the one way, and we're going round the opposite way. But our aim is to get to the same place.
I would agree with Stuart in that you can be organic and not being regenerative to your soil at the same time. But if I would like to get to the point where I'm selling my meat. I like to be able to prove to that customer that they're getting a good nutrient dense product. So I would, in the back of my mind, I do think that for that marketable part of it, that perhaps one day I might have to go organic for that. But it's not really like a massive goal. And the biodynamic really intrigues me. I think that would be something I would love to dabble with, just out of pure curiosity, because I've met some people that really rave about it. And when you think about it, like a couple of 100 years ago, when they say they wouldn't have planted if it wasn't the right time in the moon, things like that. And I just think, well, if it's not going to cost me anything and I have the time to do it, then why not just dabble and see? And if it improved your system, then way. So it intrigues me.
We've gone for, I think it's 5 years now without using an insecticide. We've cut down on our fungicides. But that's because we got a more healthy soil and more healthy plant, and that's what we're aiming for. It's no different than what you try and aim to do with your body. Then you don't, you want to be able to have those medicines when you really need them, and that's what I think is the way forward.
Hopefully this will be an easy one for you guys to answer, because I'm sure you've all been through you've all been through your journeys, and I'm sure sometimes it's been quite a lonely one, and you've all reached your stopping points, whether it's Daily 2017 or the handover of the farm. So and there's a lot of sceptical farmers out there that perhaps are a bit worried about that apparent mountain to climb to become a regenerative farmer. It can seem like there's an awful lot to do, and how on earth do you take the next step? What would be each of your individual one piece of advice to a sceptical or an unknowing farmer who is considering regenerative agriculture but is afraid to take the next step?
Buy a book, man. Read. The people that are nervous are the ones that are not reading, and they're not researching, and they're not talking and really listening. And that's it. It's everyone that you speak to that is more open-minded are the people that will go and research and will open-mind, have good conversations with people. It's just a knowledge barrier, and they talk about mindset a lot in regenerative transitioning, and it is a mindset, but it really is what you're willing to learn and understand yourself. And I know my neighbouring farmers that would give me slack, but at the same time, if you ask them some questions about things, they don't know. They haven't never even dug a hole in their own soil. So that's what frustrates me, is that.
There's a lot of farmers moving that way, and you just got to go what you're confident that you and have a go yourself. And there's plenty of people now to give you advice. It's just in our area now, the number of people that are looking at it and moving that way. It is the way that agriculture's going.
I think they've pretty much covered it there. But I would say if you want to go into it, just try it on a little bit, see how that works. If you've got doubts about it, just give it 12 months of a little area and see how you get on with it. And I think that sort of grows confidence in the whole thing. So when we started, it was, oh no, you can't direct drill here. Let's get a contractor in. We'll do 20 acres with it and see how it goes for the first year. And then all of a sudden you realize it does work. So you can roll that over a bit more. You buy a drill, and it's sort of, it snowballs up. So one little win will just create a huge amount more positivity around the whole thing, which is pretty crucial to have a positive mental attitude in this, because it's pretty soul destroying at times. So
you won't get it right all the time. And that's the thing. You've got to be willing to have a go.
Have we got any other questions?
Thank you so much. You're all really inspirational. Just at Farm Carbon Toolkit, we want to support farmers in a really tricky environment, financial and climate and such like. Could you advise us what you think we should do next to support farmers in the transition to a more resilient business?
For me, if you want to get more farmers into this, farmers respond to financials and the monetary side of it. And I think a lot of the time when people are talking about it, it can come across as, excuse it, slightly hippie at times. So I think if we can communicate a message that is focusing perhaps on the financials of things and making them understand that that's where this is driven from, a lot of the other stuff that comes alongside that is a bonus on top, shall we say. The financials will drive it. That's what's going to make this move into the mainstream, if you will. But it's got to be done in a way that farmers will engage with, not that makes them, quiver at the thought of someone telling you about your nematodes and stuff like that. That sort of farmers initially will not have any interest in that. So the best way to sort of get into them is to push that financial aspect, and then they'll show interest in more things later on. Is my sort of experience with it. So.
Yes, but we've recently hosted an event with us, and the surprising thing that I found is that the number of farmers that came to that event and were quite shocked what they saw, and it's getting them onto farms that are actually doing it, and I think that's what's going to make the difference.
If it's Farm Carbon Toolkit that you're talking about specifically, maybe I'd say selling our own carbon credits is something that I feel is going to come at us thick and fast, and I don't think as farmers we're really ready for it in the UK. I'd say it's that kind of education of helping us understand how we should be negotiating some of those contracts or how we should be managing it, and because we don't even know how much we need to keep for ourselves before we start selling them off to someone else. That kind of help from a company like yours would be really valuable when you're sitting on 20% organic matter.
And rising, I hear. Oh, no, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. Is there any other audience questions before I close? No, fabulous. So the last question from me, you'll be pleased to hear, is if there was one piece of advice you were giving someone just starting out on a journey where they're focusing on their soils, what would it be? Go on, Richard, you go first.
Go and dig a hole.
Very good advice, very good advice. Brona, what would you say, what would one piece of advice be?
Start a wormery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stuart, come on.
I'm just going to steal your answer from before. Just read, watch as much as you can, read as much as you can. The amount of hundreds and thousands of hours I've probably wasted, or my wife will tell you I've wasted looking at videos on YouTube, and it's just trying to absorb the information that allows you to gain the confidence to have a go at it. So just educate yourself as much as you can.
Fabulous. And that's the end of my questions, you'll be pleased to know. On the theme of educating ourselves, each of our wonderful winners this year will be hosting a farm walk. So after today's session, I'll find out when they're going to do it, and we'll put it on all of the comms of FCT, IFA, and our wonderful partners at Hutchinson's and Cotswolds. So if you'd like to come and see the farm in person, please do. Please come along. We'll put the details up as soon as we can. And then it only leaves me left to say thank you to our sponsors again, Paul at Cotswolds, Ed at Hutchinson's, our wonderful judges, Becky, David, partner at IFA of Deb, and everyone else who's read an application or helped with the admin or everything else. It's very much appreciated. And overall, thank you to anyone who's applied this year, our wonderful highly commended farmers, our finalists, and our winners.